What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the iPhone 13 versus the iPhone 12 versus the iPhone 11. Which iPhone should you buy if you are on a budget? I'm going to talk about some of the essential things that you should definitely know before making these purchases. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the price, because this is very important and it really depends on your budget here. But the iPhone 13 is obviously going to be the most expensive. You can find this for around $380, and this is going to be in the used refurbished marketplace, of course. And then the iPhone 12 is going to be about $100 cheaper, so you can find these around $300. And then the iPhone 11, I'm seeing these phones go for like $300, but you don't want to pay more than like $250. I wouldn't pay more than $250 for the iPhone 11 right now, but I've seen them online and they're kind of like, the prices are kind of all over the place. But you definitely want to stay in that $200 to $250 price range, and it will vary based on condition of the phone and battery health as well too. And make sure you always ask about the battery health. You want to aim for something at least in the mid 80s. Alright, so let's talk about the displays. So the first thing that'll stand out with these displays is that they're actually all the same size. Apple goes with a pretty much a 6.1 inch display for these devices, so they all have the same screen size. Where you will see a difference is that the iPhone 13 does have a much smaller notch than the 12 in the iPhone 11. So you get a little bit more screen real estate, but it's really not much. And I do want to talk about the actual specs of the displays. So alright, so both the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 12, these have Apple's OLED displays, and the OLED displays are just going to be deeper blacks and just punchier colors than the LCD display on the iPhone 11. Some people say the LCD display is easier on the eyes, which really depends, but these definitely have better displays for the most part, the iPhone 13 and iPhone 12. So if you watch a lot of content, you might really want to consider this phone. It's just going to have better colors. And also the iPhone 13 and iPhone 12 do have a better max brightness as well too. So these phones have 1200 nits max brightness. So in direct sunlight, the iPhone 13 and 12 would be better than the 11. So if you're outdoors a lot, you'll be able to see these two phones much better than the iPhone 11. Now also the biggest thing is that you do have a higher resolution on the iPhone 13 and 12 as well too. And basically they pretty much look identical in terms of resolution and color. Like I said, the only real difference here is the notch. But the iPhone 11 does have a 720p plus kind of display here, and you do have a 1080p plus display on the 13 and 11. So those are pretty much the big spec differences. Looking at them head on, like I said, it really is going to be the color that you're going to see. So if you do a lot of image editing and stuff like that, watch a lot of content, like I said, these displays are going to be better and they're brighter as well too. Alright, so let's talk about performance here. So of course the iPhone 13 is going to have the best performance here with the Apple A15 chip, 4 gigs of RAM, the iPhone 12 with the Apple A14 chip, 4 gigs of RAM, and then the iPhone 11 with the Apple A13 chip, also 4 gigs of RAM. And you can see the scores here as far as the Geekbench scores go. Show you guys the multi-core scores as well too. So you can see that pretty big score difference here. When it comes to the real world use of these phones, I think they're all pretty fast, guys. You'll be surprised. Like I said, even the iPhone 11 is actually still pretty fast considering its age. And I'll just go ahead and show you guys. So we'll do the Subway Surfer on the 13 and 11. So you guys can see the iPhone 11 just booting up is not necessarily a slow phone at all, even compared to the 13, which had much higher scores. And then we'll go ahead and launch YouTube on the 12 and 13. So you can see I'm telling you right now, guys, just animation wise, they all are pretty smooth for the most part. So it's the iPhone 11 or 12 does not feel slow in comparison to the 13 at all. Just scrolling stuff, to me they feel virtually the same almost. And also, you will get longer iOS updates with the iPhone 13. The iPhone 12 should have a few more years of updates left. And then the iPhone 11, I think this phone will get iOS 18, but I'm not really super sure on if it'll get iOS 19. It just depends. Apple typically, they do 5 to 6 years of updates. As we saw, they just canceled the iPhone 10, but the iPhone 10s is actually running iOS 17. So yeah, so it just depends on what Apple does, but there's typically the time frame is usually like 5 to 6 years for iOS updates. So definitely take that into consideration if you're planning on keeping these phones for a long time. Also, let's go ahead and launch PUBG here. See if I can get these at the same time. See which one gets in here first. It looks like the iPhone 12 got in there first, and then the iPhone 11 not too far behind it. Now, you guys will be surprised at, if you're trying to game for cheap, the iPhone 11 actually does a very good job. So you don't really have to spend a ton of money to play games like PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, and stuff like that. Because as we can see, the 11 is still actually able to play this at HDR 60 frames. It's actually pretty smooth. I think all these phones kind of get warmer than I would like when you're playing games. So you can buy one of those like those cooling pads that I actually just did a video on, and that'll help with the cooling and also with the battery health as well too. But you can't get it for the iPhone 11 though, the MagSafe one at least. But you can see the iPhone 12, all of these actually do great with gaming. So that's the cool thing about the older iPhones, is that they actually still are very powerful chipsets. Great optimization as well too. So really smooth 60 frames on all of these phones. Now obviously future proof, you want to go with like an iPhone 13 or iPhone 12 of course. But like I said, for right now, at least in 2024, as we can see, I can play 60 frames PUBG HDR on all of these devices. No issue at all. Super smooth. So if you're gaming, I would say performance wise, it's not really a big deal because the iPhone 11 is still really fast. The iPhone 12 is still really fast. Shockingly fast actually. So I'm really impressed with performance on these much older iPhones. Let's check out the speaker quality at max volume. We'll start with the 13. Yeah, the 13 definitely sounds better than the 12. It's actually a little bit louder. Yeah, so the 12 and 11 pretty much sound the same, but the 13 is noticeably better quality. It's a little bit louder and the sound is a little bit cleaner as well too. So definitely better speakers on the 13 for sure. So I do want to touch on the design of these phones. I think the iPhone 11 has the best design as far as comfort. It has a smoother edge on it and it fits way better in the palm. It's extremely comfortable to hold. But with the iPhone 13 and iPhone 12, they have a boxier design, but they cut into the palm and it doesn't feel as comfortable. It has that more squared off design. Like I said, it doesn't feel as comfortable. All these phones are IP68 rated, which is really nice. And the cool thing about the iPhone 13 is that it does have, it basically looks like an iPhone 14 and 15 because the way the camera is set up, which I think is pretty nice. But yeah, there's not really a big difference with the hardware with these phones. They all look really good. Like I said, the iPhone 11, in my opinion, is way more comfortable. But like I said, it really depends. If you want something that looks, a lot, I guess a lot newer technically, then the iPhone 13 would definitely be the device, since it looks so much like the new iPhones. But the iPhone 12 still looks pretty modern as well too, and honestly the iPhone 11 still looks pretty modern as well, and I think again more comfortable. Let's talk about the cameras on these phones here. So you would be surprised, all of these phones still take really good pictures for the most part, and they all pretty much have the same camera setup as well too. So they all have a 12 megapixel standard, and they all have a 12 megapixel ultra wide as well too. There's some minor differences going on with the cameras though we'll talk about, but they all shoot in 4K 60 for the rear cameras, and then for the selfie cams, they are also all 12 megapixel cameras that also shoot in 4K 60. One of the big differences here is on the iPhone 13, you will see a cinematic mode, which you will not have on the iPhone 12 and 11, which is really nice. So you get that really cool depth of field and focus to your videos. So if that's something that interests you and you really like that, then definitely you want to go for the 13. But in general, the 13 is obviously going to take better photos. It's just a newer phone. It's going to take better photos, but I wouldn't say it's dramatically better than the iPhone 12 for the most part. Like I said, for the price that you're going to pay for each of these phones, I think the photo quality is really impressive on all of these devices. But yeah, if you absolutely want the best camera, definitely get the iPhone 13. It is noticeably better when it comes to selfies and stuff like that, skin tones. It's just going to take some really, really good shots for the most part. I was actually really impressed with the quality. The iPhone 12, I think that, like I said, they all do a really good job. I noticed when you take the iPhone 11 out of like any type of good lighting, that's when it tends to struggle compared to the 13 and 12. These phones do a little bit better in lower light than the iPhone 11 for sure, for the most part. But video is really solid on all of these phones as well too. Like I said, for the price that you're paying for each device, I actually think the cameras are actually really good. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys here. You see these, took a picture real quick, and as you guys can see, the 13 does a better job with the color. It gives you just a much better color. But you can see the photos look very similar. I think the 11 still looks pretty good, guys, for the most part here. But yeah, you'll see like the 12 and 13 have more detail. You can kind of see like the oil from my hand on the Funko Pop right there. Can't really see it that you can see it, but you can't see it that much. Now, as far as battery life, I'll tell you right now, if that's your biggest concern, the iPhone 13 has excellent battery life. It is actually really good. And again, considering the size of this phone, there is something you need to know. The 13 and 12 do have MagSafe, so if you want to use the MagSafe accessories and stuff like that, you can use it on these two devices. The 11 does not, but the 11 does have wireless charging as well, so you can go ahead and do that. But yeah, that's like the biggest differences, and it pretty much goes in this order from, this is really good battery life. iPhone 12 is pretty good, decent. iPhone 11, definitely a phone that you're going to have to charge. And again, it depends on the battery health, but this one isn't that bad. It can kind of get through a day. It's 87% battery health. So it's okay. But yeah, if you're doing intense stuff on the 11, you're going to have to charge it for sure if you're gaming and stuff like that. But the 13 and 12 are actually somewhat, pretty good as far as screen on time. All right, so that is pretty much it, guys. For the most part, really good phones. I think for each budget, you can't really go wrong with these phones. I was really surprised with the cameras on the 11, performance on the 11. It's a really good device. The only thing is that it might not get updates for, it might not get it might only get like 2 more updates possibly. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.